is eBook Showtime, connecting readers with authors by promoting ebooks and the personalities who write the words. To say that today's guest author is a bit of an all-rounder may be something of an understatement. Born in Dublin, matured in England, she wanted to follow her grandfather into Fleet Street, which was deemed by her family as unfeminine, unreliable and dangerous. Instead, she went to Dockland, Liverpool, safe, respectable and pensionable, and from where she returned with teaching qualifications and extremely good at self-defence. The rest of her life reads rather like an adventure story in its own right. Crofting in Scotland, dog breeding, abandoned in the African bush with a 7-week-old daughter, surviving Libyan riots, public hangings, imprisoned husband and eventual deportation, she continued to live the life of a character from a television action-packed miniseries. Now an award-winning author, she's also done screenwriting, journalism and video production, all of which make her CV rather entertaining to read, even though it makes no mention of the time she was made to present a radio programme with a knife held to her throat. So let's meet award-winning author Lucinda E Clarke.
Thank you very much, Graham, and thank you very much for asking to be on it.
So what's all this about a radio broadcast and a knife held to your throat?
We're going back a little bit in time here, probably to about 1981, and I was living, no, a little earlier than that, probably about 79, and I was living in Benghazi, Libya at the time, under Gaddafi, and he'd come down to Benghazi on a visit, and I believe somebody had set a bomb off. Now, he took power by imposing a curfew on all the people because he'd taken control of all the radio stations. So he was really quite jumpy about radio stations. And unfortunately, that was my night to be on air. So when I arrived at the radio station, I was met by this crowd of guys with fixed bayonets who escorted me to the crew room and then escorted me into the studio and literally laid the bayonet on my shoulder with this sort of point pricking into my neck while I was on live, and I was absolutely terrified. People did say after, you didn't sound your normal bouncy self, and I said no, not surprising really. But that was about 4 hours of sheer terror trying to sound normal. It was an experience. It really was.
Character building.
Very much so. I mean, when I put on a couple of records and I sort of escaped because I was, you know, when you get nervous, you know where you want to go, and they came with me, and I was horrified. Right into the ladies, and I mean, this is really an insult in the Arab world, to say the least, you know, to say the least of it. So I was really glad to escape that night. What was really scary, though, was the fact that I didn't think that they probably spoke any English. So if I'd said something like, Gaddafi is an idiot, then okay, that would have been a stupid thing to do. But I could have said something quite innocent and they might have thought that I was running the government down or criticising or saying something out of line. So yeah, that was scary. That really was scary.
Now, down to your books, it would seem that the advice and practice for today's authors is to find a genre and then stick with it. Now, looking at your CV, you could be described as, and this is to put it lightly, amazingly versatile. So I wonder what challenges you've faced writing in so many genres.
Well, I didn't, to be quite honest, because I have been writing for a living since 1986, and I've had clients, some from hell, some gorgeous clients, who wanted me to write about things like splitting the atom, how the bakery works, interviewing Julius Caesar and Cleopatra. I'm just trying to think, there are hundreds, how toothpaste is made. There were corporates, educational programs for radio and television, tourist videos, how things are made. It was just such a wide range. Mayoral speeches, brochures, leaflets, adverts. Well, basically, if it needed writing, I wrote it, and I didn't care if it was the truth or not, as long as they paid me at the end of the day. I had to put food on the table. So to write about different things isn't isn't difficult for me. Well, I say it isn't difficult. Writing books is very, very different from writing radio scripts where you think in sound, or television scripts where you have the camera to show, so you don't have to worry about the show, don't tell nonsense. So really, when I started writing books myself, with myself as the client, it was a whole new ball game. And I just wrote what I fancied writing.
So you've written books in, I wonder how many genres? 3? What you've done?
I think there's 3 altogether. Yes, yes. So far, I'm thinking about another genre, but that's on the back burner for now.
Non-fiction, memoir, and...
Well, I started off with a memoir, which is, I don't know if you can see it, Walking Over Eggshells. You see that clearly? Yes. I wrote this never to publish. I wrote it for my children to explain where I was coming from, having a rather happy childhood and quite an adventurous life. If I die tomorrow, Graham, I will have lived and I will have had no regrets. So I did this first. I didn't know anything about marketing or anything like that. I just popped it up on Amazon. In fact, I haven't once tried to get an agent or anything. I'm quite happy as an indie. So having completed that, I thought, I wonder if I can write a real novel, a full-length novel. And believe me, Amie African Adventure is 110,000 words, something like that. So that's the next book I wrote. And as you can see, showing off, it was pretty successful. I'd just taken a girl out of UK and put her in Africa, and then civil war breaks out and she's fighting for survival. So it's really an adventure action story, which are not terribly in vogue at the moment. I've just been told to rename it a thriller. So having done that, I came up in conversation. I was telling a story at a dinner party or something, and I suddenly realized that I was forgetting a lot of the experiences that I'd had, especially for my writing career, which started off in a really, really weird way because I fell into it, like I've fallen into so many things in my life. No plans, it just happens. Fate does that to me. So I decided that I would write a memoir about my experiences filming, or how I got into writing and how I got into the video industry. And there are lots of cute stories in there about things that went wrong. I haven't been able to name a lot of famous people because I can't afford lawyer fees like they can. So a lot of it isn't in here, but a lot of stuff is. So I wrote that, and it got longer and longer and longer. So I thought, whoops, I better split this. No, wrong book. This is well rehearsed, folks, you can tell. Right, it got longer and longer and longer. So I thought I better split this into 2 books. So that is, that's actually my film crew when we were out in the rural areas in Natal. Now, frankly, Graham, I didn't write them to make a blockbuster out of them in any shape or form. I just put them out there so that if anything happened, and when I'm in the old age home, I can actually read them again and think, wow, this is an interesting person. But in fact, a few of my readers say that they actually prefer these books to all the others. I'm not sure what that says about my writing, but never mind. Okay, having done those, we're up to 4 now, I thought I better go and rescue Amie again. So second in the series, Amie, the Child of Africa. And I had a lot of fun with that as well. I enjoyed it. Then I got round to cleaning the house one day, which doesn't happen very often in my life, and I found a book that I'd started writing in 1989, and it was a comedy about going back to fairyland years after that famous ball. And as we all know, Cinderella did come from the wrong side of the tracks, and she had a fondness for chocolate and such like. And she's now, you can see, pretty fat, blousy, and she's decided that King Charming was a total whim, so she wants a divorce. And I've taken all the fairy tale characters and brought them into not the present, they're still in their fairy tale land, but they do have some modern conveniences. And I've turned it into a political parody because the Green Dragon is sent by the Red Party to get the peasants to revolt. They're pretty revolting anyway, but they actually don't want to fight or anything. They're quite happy as they are because they're not very bright peasants. So it's a comedy. Again, a certain genre, a bit like Tom Sharp and Rowan Atkinson. Hopefully, well, nicely, some people have liked it. And then I went back to Amie again, and number 3 in the series, Stolen Future. I have now turned her from a very ordinary, everyday housewife in the UK. She's now become a spy. She hates it. That came out in October 2016, and hopefully, although this will date this video, number 4 will be out hopefully in September 2017, and that's called Cut for Life. And I'm actually talking about a social issue that is very rare. I'm not going to say more than that, but it's something that's only really talked about behind closed doors. And I've put it into a novel, set it all in Africa.
Those are your 3 genres. So how would you respond to someone who might claim it's not possible to write so proficiently across the spectrum?
I'm afraid I tend to think that if you can write a bus ticket and you can write a film screen, a score. If you can put words together, and that's the only, and I won't call it a talent, but it's something that I have been doing for years, I think you can write just about anything. I mean, when they said to me, we want a program on splitting the atom, I just sort of gaped at them and thought, I don't believe this. I mean, how do you split the atom for a start? I haven't a clue. Things like, I'm just trying to think of all the millions of different subjects that I wrote on. But basically, you get the information, and very often I put it into a, preferably comedy, because I tend to find it very hard to be serious about anything. And I could dramatize it. Most of the stuff I did was docudrama, comedy type stuff. So mind you, I didn't manage that with Splitting the Atom. That wasn't too funny. But most of the stuff that I did try and make it light, easy to understand, and make it so that people enjoyed it. And if they enjoyed it, then hopefully they learn from it.
Now, at one point, you've mentioned that your character Amie is taking you to court.
Yes, right. There are lots of different marketing techniques, Graham, and I've tried every which way to get out into the worldwide marketplace, so to speak, so that people do know that I write books. And it would be very nice to, I've had number 1s with quite a few of the books, you know, in genre on Amazon, but like you know, you promote and it goes up, and then you don't promote for a short while and the rankings go down. So I thought that one of the things everybody says is you've got to get an email list. So you have like your own private BookBub or eReaders Today list of people who adore your stuff, and every time you bring out something new, they will go and buy it. And then you can go and buy your mega yacht down the road and sail up into the blue. Great thought, isn't it? Not going to happen.
I'll have to memoir about that.
Yes. So I decided that if I had a mailing, if I was trying to build up a newsletter, a monthly newsletter, I must have something to attract my readers and keep them coming back. So I thought up the idea of Amie, a character, my main heroine, suing me for all the awful things I've done to her. Now, I did this for a little while in my newsletter, and I actually started getting emails from people who were genuinely worried for me. They were recommending lawyers. They were suggesting that I should try and knock her down, that 1.5 million was too much to ask for. And I thought to myself, you are so clever, Lucinda, you have thought outside the box. You're so far outside the box that nobody realizes So I've actually had to stop the whole thing and say it was settled out of court because people took me seriously.
Well, that's brilliant. It's not so much an instance of thinking out of the box as thinking out of the book.
It's just so far down the road,
Yeah.
nobody knew where I was anymore. I just thought it was a clever idea, but I've got to realise that perhaps it was, I won't say it was too clever, but it was just too far, too far gone.
Well, I think it was brilliant. You're now living in Spain. So how does living in a beautiful place affect your writing, especially when some of your creations are quite disturbing?
You notice I do nasty things to Amie, don't I? I have this feeling that I need to be surrounded by what I think of as beauty. And for me, beauty is somewhere like the Cotswolds, where I grew up, or part of my growing up. I was in Ireland for the first 10 years of my life. And I get very depressed under grey skies. I get that SAD complex syndrome, whatever it is. And where we live at the moment is really, really beautiful. I mean, we overlook palm trees and orange orchards and almond trees, and we look down over to the sea, and that I find sort of soothes my soul, and I can write. Because I am probably, I don't know, I like to think I'm a nice person, that I'm sort of everyday kind and friendly and a bit dopey, but when you get your characters, oh Graham, it's great, you can do anything to them legally. You can chop their legs off, or you can marry them off to somebody really dreadful, or you can have them slogging across the desert dying of thirst. So that doesn't affect my feeling of what I do to my characters, but it gives me the right mind frame to work.
Right. How long were you living in Africa?
Coming up, wait a minute, let me think. Have I got that many fingers and toes? Maths has never been my strength. About 35 years.
35 years.
So probably the biggest chunk of my life. I am counting Libya in there. We were there for 5.5 years. We were also in Kenya, Botswana, South Africa, in Swaziland for a bit too. South Africa was the biggest part.
Right.
And I'm there.
And do you miss Africa? Because some people do. Yeah.
This is going to sound really crazy, but you can stand out there in the rural areas and it's almost as if you feel the drum beats beneath your feet. It appears to throb with life. You're very, not on edge, but you're very aware. You're aware of dangers. And because there's so much crime and so forth in the cities, you are very aware in the cities as well. But in the rural areas, you're also aware because you never know quite what might be creeping towards you, slithering towards you. And yeah, it's when you're in a more civilized, and I hate to call Africa uncivilized because it's got just a totally different set of rules, different way of life completely. I feel slightly more doped. I'm not as aware, I'm not as, on edge is not the right word to use, but I'm not as alive.
Right.
But I miss Botswana most of all because the Swana were great people and they were happy-go-lucky and very laid back, and I felt very safe there.
Now, just to finish, do you have an amusing story from your vast memory banks?
We were working on a programme for television which went out twice a week, and it was on inventions. There was one in Britain called Beyond 2000, I think. There was another one in Australia where it showed new innovations and technologies and so on. And we had about 3 or 4 different inserts per programme. And they were always sort of done last minute, so you were always sort of quite rushing about like mad things. But this particular company wanted to showcase their products, which cleaned things, really cleaned things. And they arrived and they bought a load of special carpet cleaners, so we got in a whole pile of carpet tiles, and we let the producers, she must have been about 5 years old, scribble all over the carpet tiles with these great felt it pens. She thought it was amazing because she wasn't allowed to do that at home. So she did, and we had quite a famous actress who was going to do the to-camera bit. And we were sort of getting ready to freeze it, show her with the dirty carpet tile, and then cut to clean carpet tile just as she finished scrubbing it. But it actually worked. And we were all quite shocked because, you know, people make claims for these products and they don't flipping work unless you're there for 96 hours scrubbing them and that. And she came out with all these expletives. Oh my God, and lots of naughty words. It ... works. Well, the child, the 5-year-old, who just worshipped this famous actress because, you know, she was her fan on television. She thought she was marvellous with her face dropped open. And the producer sort of said, no, just let's cut the language and let's try again. So we did the whole thing all over again, and she couldn't stop swearing. It was awful. And in the end, the kid had to be hustled out of the room, and she and the producer had this big slang match about how she could possibly simply say, oh my goodness, how amazing, it works, without about 50 million different swear words, some of which I hadn't heard in many years either. And there was the one where they were trying to show how they were getting clean water, and there was a cow urinating into it. That was quite funny too at the time, especially when the kid walked off with the bucket full to take home. Do his parents know? Yes, we had a lot of fun doing those. We really did. And the lady out by the Orange River who told me in all seriousness, bless her, that they had invented digging channels from the Orange River into their fields to irrigate them. And I thought, this is just amazing. I mean, they were doing that in Egypt, what, 2,000 years ago? And that they had actually invented. I thought that was so sweet and so innocent. It just goes to show how different the mindsets are and how different the knowledge is in different places.
Well, Lucinda, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. It's been very entertaining, and I don't use expletives lightly. No, I mean adverbs. I don't use adverbs lightly.
Adverbs, you should know that, Graham. You mustn't use adverbs anymore.
So, thank you very much for this, and I look forward to reading more of your books.
Good. I hope you do. I hope you enjoy them. They're there for people to enjoy, but I must confess, I write them because I couldn't stop writing if I tried. I really couldn't. I get withdrawal symptoms if I don't write for, say a couple of weeks. I'm just driven. Hooked on it, I guess.
Keep on driving, Lucinda.
I will.
Thank
you very much indeed, Graham. Really appreciate the opportunity to chat to you, and it's been great to meet you as well.
You're welcome.